What if the world told you that you were too plain, too awkward, too weak to matter? Would you shrink into silence? Or would you rise and one day become the voice of human rights for the entire world? This is the story of Eleanor Roosevelt, a woman once dismissed as unremarkable, who grew into one of the most remarkable voices of the 20th century. Eleanor was born into privilege in New York City in 1884, but her childhood was anything but easy. Her mother was cold and critical, calling her ugly and serious. By the age of 10, she was an orphan, losing both her parents. She grew up shy, self-conscious, and convinced she was unwanted. In a society that valued women for beauty and charm, Eleanor felt invisible. And yet, this very invisibility planted a seed. Because when the world tells you that you don't belong, you learn to listen more deeply, to see what others overlook, to grow empathy where bitterness might have taken root. When her husband, Franklin D. Roosevelt, became president during the Great Depression, Eleanor stepped into the role of First Lady. At the time, the job was mostly ceremonial: host dinners, smile, stay quiet. But Eleanor had no interest in playing the silent hostess. She began traveling the country, visiting coal mines, schools, hospitals, and military camps. She listened to the poor, the sick, the marginalized. She brought their voices back to the White House. She redefined what it meant to be First Lady. She became the conscience of an administration, the bridge between the people and power. Eleanor wrote a newspaper column called My Day, where she spoke directly to millions of Americans, sharing her thoughts on justice, equality, and compassion. She held press conferences where only female reporters were allowed, creating job opportunities for women in journalism. She stood against segregation, invited African American leaders like Marian Anderson to perform when others rejected them, and spoke openly about racial injustice, a time when doing so was highly controversial. Eleanor wasn't just the president's wife. She was a leader in her own right, guided not by popularity, but by principle. After Franklin's death, Eleanor's story could have ended quietly. Instead, it soared. In 1945, she was appointed as a U.S. delegate to the newly formed United Nations. Many thought she was just a token figure, but Eleanor quickly proved otherwise. She became the driving force behind the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a groundbreaking document that declared, for the first time in history, that all human beings are entitled to dignity, freedom, and equality. When others argued, stalled, or gave in to cynicism, Eleanor kept pushing. She believed that words on paper could spark a revolution in conscience. And she was right. The Declaration became a blueprint for human rights around the globe. From a psychological perspective, Eleanor Roosevelt is a powerful case of post-adversity growth. Childhood neglect and criticism often crush people. But For Eleanor, it sharpened her empathy. Experts in resilience say, those who experience deep rejection early in life often develop a heightened ability to see and feel the pain of others. Eleanor's life shows how wounds can become windows openings through which compassion flows. Leadership scholars also highlight her as a model of transformational leadership. She didn't lead through charisma or force, but through moral conviction. And research shows that leaders who anchor their decisions in values, not image, create lasting change. If Eleanor's life were a parable, it might sound like this. A young girl is told she is plain, unwanted, unworthy. She believes it, and for a time, she hides. But instead of letting those words destroy her, she gathers them like stones and builds a bridge. Years later, the same girl, once overlooked, becomes the bridge that carries millions toward freedom. Eleanor Roosevelt's life whispers a challenge to all of us. Do not let other people's doubts become the ceiling of your life. They said she was unattractive. She became unforgettable. She became one of the most remarkable voices of the 20th century. They said she should stay silent. She gave the world a declaration of human rights. So what about you? What names, labels, or judgments have been placed on you? And what if those labels are not cages, but catalysts pushing you to prove that your voice matters more than anyone's doubt? Eleanor Roosevelt showed us that greatness isn't about being the loudest in the room or the most glamorous on the stage. It's about daring to use your voice, even when the world tells you to be silent. So here's my invitation. Think about the part of you that's been underestimated, dismissed, or doubted. What if that part isn't your weakness, but your greatest strength waiting to be claimed? Because, in the end, history doesn't remember those who fit in. It remembers those who found the courage to stand out. If Eleanor's story spoke to you, hit like to help more people hear it. Share this with someone who's been doubting their own voice. And don't forget to subscribe for more modern parable stories that remind us that sometimes the people the world overlooks are the very ones destined to change it. Because sometimes all it takes is one voice to remind the world what it means to be human.